Have you ever wondered what becomes of those young kids that riot the streets and seem hopelessly lost? Those that make mothers publicly cry and dads wonder what they've done wrong? This is a story about the time in our lives when we tend to do things and don't think much. Why? Because we are finding our way through the space tunnel called life. Wanting to be someone and becoming someone are two different things. Were we all punks once? 13 years ago, a crew of 16-year-old kids saw the light when the first shops around town were selling snowboards. They fought their own little war like so many others do, but what became of them now that most of them are fighting the verge of 30? That is what this is all about. These are the kings of the wonderland called punk. There was Cookie. He started drinking at age 13 and has always been one of the more radical ones with his approach to beer, cigarettes, drugs, and on himself. Lille, always the loudest, the trendsetter, the king of them all. If you look at him now, you wouldn't think so, but remember, it was the 90s. Rainer, son of a plumber, always the short guy, but by far the most talented one, with the best gear, always. And really thick hair, as you can tell. Joni, every gang needs a funny guy. The handsome one, everybody likes. But also the likable ones would have been in trouble if the law only knew. And then there was Benny, who always had a very strong opinion about things he had no clue about. He did not even turn cool until a few years later, even though he was trying hard, really hard, forward as well as backwards to get there. Basti never really got into the snowboarding thing. While others dug in the snow, he was rather into headbanging and stage diving. Thorsten always had a bit of madness in him. Totally into psychedelic drugs, he was the oldest of the crew and the only one with a driver's license too. It doesn't look like it, but it felt good and strong, so we could handle any enemy that we naturally had to have. Enemy 1 were the skiers. Enemy 2 were the families. Worst of them all, the skiing families. As long as they got the beating, it was all good. Living in trash didn't matter either. Someone would pick it up at some point. Now, 13 years later, the trash has long been picked up and the flame of enlightenment has struck the odd soul. What really interests us is what happened to us and who we became. First thing after school, we all ventured out to see what's out there. This is not to glorify ourselves. This is just one story in a million. Everybody has their own. That matters just as much. Let's start with our little hero. Rainer didn't let his engine stall at all. He was the only one who became professional and made us all look like kooks. He won a German Cup in '98 and is getting paid to enjoy what he does best, turning things he touches into gold. Lille had the craziest thing happening. He was chosen Germany's most beautiful face in '96, putting him on runways and catalogs, fashion magazines. He was all over the place. He lived in Milano, New York, Berlin, and is now bearing the pain of living in Los Angeles, making his living as a writer and director, and he's the first one to get married too in the fall. After they almost locked him away even before finishing school, Benny became a tramp. He didn't even have a home for almost 4 years and was bouncing from one country to another, counting over 45 different ones before he eventually came home in 2002. He's now an entrepreneur and owns one of Hollywood's most twisted restaurants.
In 2004, he introduced here in the United States for the first time the revolutionary opaque dining in the dark restaurant.
Playing with what you know and what you should know and what you don't know and what you don't see. Basti is still headbanging, only that he's now playing his own gigs all over Europe with one of the many bands he's playing in. They have released several albums and have music clips playing on MTV. Since you're still waiting on some footage from most of the others, here's what the rest does. Torsten is suffering from severe schizophrenia and is in treatment. Yoni is currently living in Fiji on an island without electricity and really hard to get a hold of. Cookie has become a German engineer, and you know what they are famous for.